It is orange and blue today. It's day 2 of the NFL owners meetings. And Mace, even though all the Broncos talked on Monday, we got a lot from Tuesday.
Yep, the NFC coaches spoke today, which meant a chance to catch up with some of the teams that are ahead of the Broncos.
Right.
Specifically, Arizona, number 4. Jonathan Gannon spoke. And, of course, we know that Sean Payton dropped the name Monty Austinfort yesterday. GM of the Cardinals, they're sitting at number 4. Was there with Brian Daboll of the Giants for a bit, and also Kevin O'Connell of the Vikings, Giants at 6. And they're very much looking at quarterbacks.
Yes.
Vikings at 11. We know they're very much looking at quarterbacks.
Yes, so we'll get to Daboll in a little bit, but let's start with the guys that people think are going to move, and that is the Arizona Cardinals. I talked to Jonathan Gannon earlier today, and it didn't take long. The second question was about Sean Payton saying, it's good to be Monty, and Gannon said, I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it is good to be Monty right now. He's in season, so I leave him alone a little bit. This is like his baby, so I just say, hey, you just do your thing, man. You just do your thing. We feel good about it, and obviously we talk, every day. But I'm excited about where we're at and what we need to add and the plan to do that. And players get back in the building here in less than a month, which would be cool. That gives me a lot of energy. So, excited about everything that's going on.
Yeah, so he says that they talk every day, and he's comfortable with whatever Monty decides.
Spoken like a coach who's just kind of taking his hands off the wheel and letting the personnel person drive personnel acquisition.
Right.
And then is going to coach who's there. Now, that being said, the Cardinals really sit in an interesting spot. Now, Kyler Murray played well down the stretch last year.
Yes, he did.
You all remember that upset that he led the Cardinals to in Philadelphia toward the end of the season. And so for now, that's led to a renewal of vows between the Cardinals and Kyler Murray. However, in terms of what draft capital might be most valuable to the Cardinals, it may well be a deal, cease that involves future picks.
Yes, and basically what we're talking about is the Cardinals could win the draft lottery, but do you want to pay out now, like the Minnesota Vikings could give you now with 2 first-rounders, or do you want some first-rounders stretched out over the next couple of years from the Denver Broncos? We're talking about windows, and with Kyler Murray, Jonathan Gannon expressing full confidence in Murray this morning.
Yeah, it says a lot, but you also kind of want to have maybe a backup plan there.
Sure.
Especially if you're Austinfort and you're looking beyond the horizon. Jonathan Gannon as a head coaches are more moment-centered. General managers are more over-the-horizon centered in terms of their thinking. It's just the nature of the job.
Yes. Yeah, and I'll say finally on Gannon, and then we can move on to another team. I did ask him about the wide receivers, not specific to Marvin Harrison Jr. or whatever, but he gave me the feel in his answer of I just get open and catch. We don't have a preference in terms of style. They come in all different shapes and sizes. Because if you move back to 12 with the Broncos, perhaps a Rome Odunze would be there for you, as Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. are seen as top 10 picks.
Or perhaps they're all gone. All 3 could be gone by 12. That's actually the danger compared with trading back to, say, pick 9, pick 8.
Yes.
So 11 or 12, whether it's Minnesota at 11, Denver at 12, puts the Cardinals at risk of not getting one of those big 3 wide receivers. And it's not that there isn't talent beyond those 3. There is, but there are reasons why Neighbors, Odunze, Harrison, they're at the top of the class for a reason.
They're at the top of the class. Now, we've talked about Arizona from today. Where do you want to go next? Because we have some Giants stuff to get to and some Vikings stuff to get to.
Let's just briefly go to the Giants. I wasn't rolling. I was just listening to Brian Daboll talk today when he met the media. But the subject of J.J. McCarthy came up. The subject of pro day workouts came up. And Daboll was basically doing his best to not say very much in any way, shape, or form. But they're obviously at a very interesting spot here because they extended Daniel Jones last off season. They have a plan for the early part of the season in Drew Locke, although earlier at this meeting, Daboll made it clear Daniel Jones is still the starter. So those of you who are still Drew Lock enthusiasts out there watching this program, Locke may start the season, but he may not last long. But at the same time, they're going down this path of doing work on the quarterbacks, even though they just gave Daniel Jones that big contract last year.
Yeah, it's curious what they're going to do. And then it's curious to see how Kevin O'Connell treated y'all in the media this morning. Again, I was talking to Gannon, you talked to O'Connell. Much different from Giants head coach Brian Daboll.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to be. You got to know part of the draft is understanding. I've used this term before, but other teams sometimes have to be complicit in your plans. And you're talking about the Denver Broncos with Sean Payton as the head coach, George Payton. I know they're the type of staff they have there. There's some great evaluators of talent, so we know if we feel strongly about the type of players that we're looking at and we're evaluating, they probably are feeling similar, and so we got to understand that is part of it. We're going to have to compete in ways to add players at all positions to our team. Starts with the evaluation process, and as we come through that, start heading towards the end of April, we're going to have to be aware of what's going on around us, in front of us, behind us, and that's not just in the first round of the draft. That's throughout the entire thing, and how the landscape of the depth at different positions is impacted. For example, by what we could see as a high volume of offensive players at the top of the draft. What does that mean for the middle? Not only the middle of round one and the end of round one, but where you can maybe find some great value kind of on that second day in rounds 2 and 3.
Now, specifically, O'Connell was asked about the Broncos jockeying for position. But I think O'Connell's answer reflects the thinking of a lot of people around the NFL right now, is that you have to be aware of what the Broncos may do.
Yes.
Sean Payton specifically, not only a wild card, but the reputation of Sean Payton when it comes to the draft is, if he loves a player, he will move heaven and earth to get that player.
Yes.
We've seen it over and over again with other positions. Like, he loved Marcus Davenport 6 years ago. Made sure they got him by trading a future first-round pick. Wasn't the greatest move.
Didn't work out.
No, it didn't work out. In fact, the better edge rusher was the guy they'd picked a year before on day 3, guy we saw at the Shrine, Trey Hendrickson from Florida Atlantic.
Love him.
So, that being said, I don't think that has deterred Sean Payton from big swings. He says yesterday it's realistic they could move up in the draft.
Yes.
And of course, the reason why we led this show off with Monty Austin is because Monty's the one that he mentioned. Is it Monty or Monty?
Monty. I just say Monty.
I see a problem is I see it, M-O-N-T-I.
Monty,
but it's Monty.
Yeah.
3-card Monty, basically.
Yes, that's right.
And 3-card Monty's holding all of the cards right now. It
Very
would
good,
seem
sir.
here at number 4 because they've got a high pick and they don't have a pressing need today for a quarterback.
Yes. So what does it say about the Broncos when you have the gambler of Sean Payton, right? We're going to do the card analogy.
Yeah.
We're going to go there. And then you have George Payton. We've got a clip of George here and
Yes.
talking about what's happening. But, before we get to that, Mace, we got to talk about the varying styles because it can work, okay? But it's interesting in the way that it could work.
It's fire and ice. Is it not?
Okay? Yeah.
They're opposites.
Yes, very much so. Sean wants to play fast and loose with the picks. He wants to move up. He wants his guy. George wants to move back and collect picks. It's varying styles. I don't think it'll be a problem for the Broncos, Mace, because at the end of the day, what Sean Payton wants, Sean Payton gets.
Yeah.
But we need to hear from George Payton in this show.
Let's hear from him now.
Oh, you talk about him. Sean and I talk every day, multiple times a day, just about everything. But probably not serious until we get into draft meetings, and you kind of get I've talked to most of the teams ahead of us. I've talked to a lot of teams behind us. I kind of know it is a little early, but I know who's willing to move. You kind of know the teams that are typically willing to move. And so you always want to have to know how much it is to move up, and then same how much you get if you move back. So we'll have a good lay of the land by the time we get, 2 weeks ahead of the draft.
But it's fascinating to see the philosophies. And look, there's data to back this up. I mean, we know George talks about the more darts philosophy. He said that a couple of years ago. He likes to have more darts, like trade down, get more picks, more shots at the board,
Right.
even though with every pick you're moving a little bit further back from the dartboard, right? But there's reasons, even though the Vikings never won a Super Bowl, they had some really good drafts and they collected talent at a pretty nice pace. So you understand why he would feel that way. The Saints, in Sean Payton's 16 years, had fewer draft picks than anybody else in the league by a full 1 pick per year average, which is massive.
That's nuts.
Yes, but it tells you that consistently 2 things were going on. 1, they were looking to always move up for specific targets. 2, they didn't value compensatory picks. And by the way, we saw that again. The Broncos probably aren't going to get a compensatory pick out of this year's free agency class, even though they lose Josey, Jewell, and Lloyd Cushenberry.
Right.
It's an interesting philosophy, but by not going after compensatory picks, you could game that and say, okay, we're going to sign players who are cut that don't count toward the comp formula. But Sean's like, no, I want who I want. I don't care about the compensatory formula. I want who I want. I don't care that I have to sacrifice draft capital to move up. I'm going to get that target. Yes. Which is why, again, if he is in love with a quarterback or quarterbacks, he will make every effort to make it happen. And he is confident enough to basically gamble his legacy on this. And this actually, frankly, Cecil, it gives me confidence if the Broncos come out with a first-round quarterback that Sean Payton would believe in that quarterback so much that he is likely tying his legacy and his bid to potentially have a gold jacket someday in the Hall of Fame to the quarterback. In all likelihood, to the quarterback they would draft in the first round if they go in that direction.
Make zero mistake about it. Sean Payton wants to be the first coach in NFL history that wins the Super Bowl with 2 different franchises. How does he do that? He finds his quarterback. So George Payton, love you, but it's going to be Sean's guy. If he's found a guy, now there's a lot of pressure on George to get the deal done. We played the clip. George said he's talked to most teams in front of him. He knows who wants to move. We'll get moving, George, because if Sean found his guy, this is legacy.
Don't get me wrong, though. George Payton has some pressure on him, even if his role is mid to late rounds, because this is still a talent-deficient roster.
Yes.
And if you're borrowing from that draft capital, that means you're going to need to hit on 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks
6th,
in order to build this roster out. So that being said, this is why you got George Payton, supposedly, right? The ability to mine those gems, to find those value in those later rounds. The results have been mixed. Obviously, a very positive example is the 3rd round of 2021, turning 1 3rd-rounder into 2 that, of course, are Quinn Miners and Baron Browning.
2 real good ones.
2 real good players. I mean, you'd love for Baron Browning to stay healthier, but Quinn is going to be a multiple-time Pro Bowler, hopefully in Denver.
And that same year, Jonathan Cooper in the 7th. That's a great pick.
That's a great value pick.
Great pick. What happened to those?
You need more of that. Now, maybe you're going to get a boost. We talked about him yesterday off camera. I'm going to mention his name. Eni Iwazurike has to formally ask for reinstatement, but is probably going to be back in the mix on the defensive line, 4th-round pick. That's a dude that you need to hit. He's got some intriguing assets in terms of his skill set. He's a good raw interior pass rusher. You need some of that in sub packages, but George needs some hits of those types of picks.
And I'll tell you what he doesn't need, Mason. Don't punch me, okay? George, we love you. We respect you. George Payton is a hell of an eye for talent. But they do not need any more special teams guys. If you happen to play special teams like an Easton Gibbs and one day you'll be a starting inside linebacker, that's awesome.
But that's not the primary thing.
Do not look for that primary. I want the freaks. I want the 4'2", 6'4" corner. Don't say his name. I want the running back that runs a 4'2" and runs angrier than anybody. Don't say his name. That's what I want George to go for, because if you hit on those freaks in day 3 of the draft, they hit big.
You say don't say his name. I want to say the names.
Say the names.
Reek Woolen, Isaiah Pacheco.
Very true.
You know who I want this year? I want a 240-pound freak of nature who can run over people and catch the ball as well. Give me Braylon Allen in the middle rounds.
Yes.
I want an immovable piece of 315-pound, clay that
Muscle.
can become one of the better run defenders in football. Give me Fabian Lovett.
Right.
And I want a receiver who can adjust to the ball in flight. I think the equal of the guys at the top of the draft, so give me Malik Washington.
Yes, and all three of those a great plan with that great upside, and if you hit big. And that's what the Broncos need. They're talent deficient. We already know this. It's going to cost things to move up. You can't be afraid in football or in life to take chances. So life's a risk, Carnal. You said it yourself. That's a deep pull. It's blood in, blood out, which you might not have watched, Mace. It's
No,
a
I haven't.
3.5-hour Latino epic movie. Like epic movie. Blood in, blood out, Bound by Honor.
Okay.
You got to watch it.
All right. I'll check it out.
Yes.
When
You're
I have
Miklo,
time.
I'm Paco.
I will watch that so I can get that reference then.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
All right. Well, there we go. Wrapping it up from Orlando.
He's Cecil. I'm Mace.
Yes.
Back
I'm
in real
Paco.
world
He's
here.
Miklo. Anyway,
What do we want people to do?
we want them to help us out on YouTube. How do you do that?
Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid.
Boom!
We got it at the end. We got it. We're.
Awesome.
I feel like we should just mic drop. I don't want to drop.
Don't drop these. These are expensive.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
some good
Expensive
equipment
stuff in here.
Yes.
Stay tuned and stay frosty.